Hello, everyone. So, I know this is the last talk before lunch, so I'll try to not be too heavy. So let's chill a little. Couple of questions before to start. How many of you are using open source software? Okay, I was expecting that. How many of you are opening issues? Okay, very good. How many of you are contributing back? Pull request, documentation. Okay, very good. How many of you are maintainers? Yes. How many of you have received an issue via Telegram from a complete stranger? I feel that. It was very fun. So, I said I'm Thomas, as you can hear from my accent, I'm from Italy. I'm actually very close from Friuli. And one thing to say, Ribolla Gialla is better than Prosecco. Sorry about that. And I won't talk about tiramisu. So, I'm a software engineer at Elastic. My work there is build and maintain the Elasticsearch client for Node.js. Elastic is the company behind Elasticsearch, Logstash, Kibana, Beats, and many other cool products. You just saw one of the many use cases in the previous talk. In my open source time, which is also 100% of my time, I work on Fastify, FastJSON Stringify. Fastify is a web framework for Node.js. FastJSON Stringify is a serialization library. FindMyWay is a HTTP router. And finally, Elasticsearch.js, which is, as said, the client for Elasticsearch. So let's talk. Let's say a little story. You start writing some code. You have a problem to solve, and for solving it, you need an HTTP web server. Easy, nothing super fancy. So you start writing some Node core code because you like it. So require HTTP, create the server, handler, listen to the port, and that's it. This works, no problem, but there is a small issue. Every request here with this code will get the same response. So you might want to improve the situation if you need to handle multiple cases. And how you do that? You write a router. That's fine. So the first implementation you can do, it's a very easy one. Use a switch case. That's fine. You switch from the URL. If you are in the root, you send back a response. Otherwise, if you have a hello, we send back word. Otherwise, a 404. Okay, it works. When we started working on Fastify 3 years ago, something, we had a similar issue, and we started searching on NPM an HTTP router for solving this specific problem. And we decided to use Wayfarer. Wayfarer was a router, not a specific HTTP, just for strings, built by Yosh. He's a very, very good developer. Go check it out on GitHub. And that solved basically all of our problem at the time. So we can have a very simple API for dispatching the request, a very easy way for declaring the routes. The only little issue we had here is that, as you can see, we had to chain the method and the path, both here and in the function dispatcher, because it's not a strict HTTP router. That's fine, it's not a problem. Fast forward, I don't remember, some months, and we decided to write our own router. So now there is a question: why build a new tool? Well, you may want to have a different API. That's fine. You may want to support different features. Also fine. Why not? You want to have better performance. Usually this is a quite common reason to build a new tool, because improving the performance quite often will lead to breaking changes, and not all the maintainers will like to merge them. And the most important thing, you want to learn new things. Do not listen to people who tell you, do not build your own framework because it's dangerous. That's not true. Build your own framework, learn new things. It's super fun. Just don't use it in production. And you will go, and everything will work very well. And then literally any other reason, name it, I'm fine with that. So let's start. Let's create a folder, a router, because I'm very good at naming things. Go inside and start writing code. And when I started working on a new project, the approach that I would definitely recommend is to focus first on the problem you need to solve, and then on the API design. And this is because if you focus first on the API design, you will probably miss the final goal, and you will need to adapt the core functionality to the API. It's not that easy as it seems. Well, if you work before on your core functionality and then shape the API around it, you will have a way better experience during your work. Let me quote Picasso here, who said, "Good artists borrow, great artists steal." So I'm not saying to you to go and steal other people's code. What I'm saying is, it's fine, go and take a look at other people's code, read them, go and read the source code, trying to figure out which are good solutions, what you like, what you're not. You have an inspiration, that's absolutely fine. And if the license allows you, you can even copy-paste a part of code, but please add a reference at the end. People will appreciate that. So after a few months of work and a lot of fun, and we had a working router. The API is slightly different. We have this router.find method, which returns an handler or not. So we have this if-else case to figure out what we have to do. Then we can declare the routes. Here we have the method and the path separated. It works well. We are quite happy. So now the question you can ask yourself is, should I make it open source? Well, my answer is yes, you should. You should always make open source if you can, obviously. Even if you fear that your code is ugly, because probably it's not. You don't know if you have heard of the imposter syndrome. It works quite well in these cases. So the nice part about publishing something open source is that you can ask help more easily to other people. You can see in a few years how your code style is improved. So there are only good things out of it. And in worst case scenario, nobody will use your code. Okay, no problem. So let me share some what we can call golden rules for maintaining a good open source project. At least worked for me. So first of all, have a good name. This is quite difficult, and I guess we can all agree about this. Then you should always choose a license before to even publish your code on some platform. Always choose a license. You should also write X-testing test. I don't want to know what you're doing in your day-to-day job. I'm fine with that. But in open source, write test. A lot of them. Then write proper documentation. We'll talk about this later. Have a good developer experience. This is very, very important. Community clearly breaking changes. This is also, I guess, all of you at some point in your life had this very nice patch that destroyed your entire code base in one command. And finally, this is the most important thing, be a good human. This is very, very important in the open source world. So let's talk about naming things. Phil Caltron said, there are only two hard things in computer science, caching validation and naming things. I cannot agree more about this. So after 4 years of trying to figure out names about open source, what I can say is, there are two types of names, descriptive names and cool names. The first one is way easier to find. It's very easy to find on NPM. You can very easily understand what's in doing, but it has no identity at all. I wrote a couple of weeks ago a very small tool. The name is Elasticsearch Running. Yeah, very good name. But it's very easy to understand what it's doing, very easy to find it out. So it works well. Well, the second one, the cool names, are way harder to find on NPM because unless you have a lot of uses of your module, you are using a very good keywords, a very good description, it's very hard to find. But it's way easier to remember, has an identity. React, Angular, this very cool name that everybody are saying. As a general rule, what I would suggest is that descriptive names are good for small libraries or small utilities, while cool names are good for big libraries or frameworks. So this usually helps, at least for giving some initial naming thing. Then, before to publish, choose a license. Always choose a license. This nice website from GitHub, choosealicense.com, that will help you choosing between the most commonly used open source licenses, which are, let's look at them very quickly. I'm not a lawyer, so take what I'm saying with the, take care. So there is JPL version 3, which is the one who offers the high protection to the authors of their software. And there's also GPL version 2, which is also very, very popular. The difference is on the clause of the patent grants. Some popular projects that are using GPL version 3 are Bash or GIMP, for example, or GIMP, I don't know. And then GPL version 2 is used by Linux. Just know that if you're using GPL version 3, you have live protection, but your code will probably be used only by other GPL version 3 softwares. And this is the reason why macOS in the next release will drop using Bash after I don't know how many years, and they will drop it in favor of Z Shell, which uses as MIT. Then there is Apache 2.0, which is widely used. We definitely know it. It offers way more flexibility to the users. There are many open source projects using it. Elasticsearch is one of them. All the software under the Apache Foundation, obviously, and the Swift programming language. And then we have BSD, which is even more flexible compared to Apache 2, and projects such as Go or Sandry are use it. And finally, there is the MIT license, which is the most permissive license ever, basically. When you use this license, you are saying to the user, do whatever you want with this code, I don't care, it's your problem. But you're giving them the right to use it, even sell it. So just know it. Some popular projects that use MIT are Angular, jQuery, Rails, Bootstrap, Fastify, if it's popular. So this was about licenses. There are many others. Go check them out. Let's talk about testing. Another quote from Bruce Eckel. If it's not tested, assume it's broken. Again, I don't want to know what you're doing in your day-to-day job, but in open source, you should always test your code. So a good question you can ask yourself is, okay, how can I be sure that my tests are enough? Well, there is no easy answer. It really depends. It depends on your project, how big is it, what are you interacting with, how big is your code base. There are many different things to take care of. As a general rule that we use is that the number of test lines should be 5 times more than the code that you are testing. So if you have a function of 5 lines, 25 lines of tests should be around okay. Then the code coverage helps a lot. 100% code coverage, you can reach it and helps a lot. Don't trust people who say you, hey, code coverage is not good because it will give you false positives, it will hide some edge cases, because yes, they are right, but have a very high code coverage. It's like driving the car with the set bet fastened. It might not save you, but it definitely increases your probability of surviving. So, just saying. So this is the testing suite of the router we implemented. Half of it are, the name of the file is issue number.test. This is because we had a lot of edge cases to handle. This testing suite is about 500 unit tests, more or less. This is testing suite of Fastify. There are more than 4,000 unit tests here. And just for saying other big numbers, the testing suite of the Elasticsearch.js client has more than 25,000 integration tests. So it really depends on what you need to do. And another nice example, this is a subfolder of the Node.js project. And they cannot even show all the files that are present in the folder on GitHub. So writing tests is very, very important in open source. Not only because they'll help you understand if your software is working, but also they will help you figure out if there is a breaking change coming or not. But also because, will you ever use it, a software that is not tested? How do you rely on it? Let me share how I search a library on NPM. So I open npmjs.com, type something. I don't install the first result. I open the GitHub repository instead and look at the test. Oh, no test. Go to step 1 and start again your search. Also, having a CI is very, very important, because how can you trust someone who says, it works on my machine, your problem? So, I don't trust them very well. And especially because nowadays there are so many CI systems that are free for open source projects, so there's no excuse to not use a CI system for testing your code. They're very easy to implement. There are a lot of very good tutorials online. You have just to do that. Another important topic I want to talk about is the writing good documentation. And this is very important because people are lazy. I don't know you, but I'm very lazy. So I don't want to open the source code every time, figure out what's happening. So a good question you can ask yourself, and this is also a very hard question, is how can I write a good documentation? And again, it's not a perfect recipe. It really depends on your project. If it's a small library, it's a big project, it's a cross project, it really depends a lot about what you are doing. So this is the bare minimum template I use every time I have to create a new library. And it's quite easy how it works. I have the library name, I have a few super fancy badges, I have a brief description of the library. Always add a brief description, is the first thing people will read. And if it's too long, people will not read it. And also, if it's too long, there are two cases. One, you can split your library in two libraries. Second, you have no clue what your library is doing, which is worse. Then you have a copy. I would suggest to have a copy-pastable install command. There is some people who say this is useless. People nowadays know you have to run npm install something, so have it is completely useless. I don't agree. Again, people are lazy. I don't want to write npm install, so copy-paste. That's it. Same thing for the usage. Always have a copy-pastable example. Even better if this example works already in the code base for your users. Perfect. And if you can test this usage example in your testing suite, my God, I'm in heaven. Perfect. Then options. If your library accepts some options, tables usually are quite good, easy to write and maintain, easy also to read. Otherwise, list works quite well. Pro tips, if you have some, share them. People usually appreciate. And finally, the license. Again, people are lazy. I don't want to go search in the repository, the license file, open it, read it. I want to know, I open the README, I want to know which license has this project. It's 2 lines. Come on, you can add them. It's not complex, just the license name, nothing more. So let me share again how I search a library on npm. I open npm.js.com, type something, I don't install the first result, open GitHub, look at the test. No test, go to 1. There are the tests, great. Can you understand what the library is doing by reading the documentation instead of opening the source code? No? Go to 1 again, and let's start searching the next one. So why am I so strict? Well, if something is not documented, then it's not part of the public API. And if it's not part of the public API, you will get a wonderful breaking changes anytime. So if you want something to be supported, document it always. Otherwise, people will never use it. Then, and this is a tip for open source. Again, I don't want to know what you're doing in your day-to-day job. In open source, always write comments. Comments are very, very useful because there is nothing less welcoming for a new contributor than a badly documented code. Because what makes sense to you may not make sense to others. And we learned this the hard way in Fastify because in the first implementation, there were no comments whatsoever. People wanted to contribute and they asked us, hey, I cannot understand what this library is doing. Please provide help. And so 3 years later, now there are a few comments around. Then another very important topic is the developer experience. This is very important. Again, let's work on the developer experience after you design your product, after you design what is functionality. After that, start working developer experience. Because if there are 2 libraries, same functionality, which one will you choose? The one with the better developer experience, always, because it's nicer to read, nicer to write, why not? But I can tell you also that if there is a very good library with a terrible developer experience and a not so good library with an amazing developer experience, you probably will choose the second one and complain about it, but you will choose the second one. So developer experience is very, very important. Let me quote here Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn, who said, if you're not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you have launched it too late. So that's fine, have a horrible developer experience on the first, second, third release of your software. That's absolutely fine. You're still trying to figure out what to do. But afterwards, start thinking about it. So let's go back again to our router. We have this router.find, if, else, this very verbose route declaration. It works, but I don't quite like it. So one of the best way for improving the developer experience is aliases. Why not have something like router.lookup? And internally, just doing the e-files for us. And for the routes, router.get, and then the path. Same functionality as before, but now it's way easier to read and to write. There's nothing super fancy or magical here. It's just an alias. You probably do alias all day in your terminal. Same thing. Then another suggestion I would like to give is to be consistent in your API. A consistent API might be more difficult to implement, but in the long run will save you from tons of breaking changes. Again, I learned this in the hard way. And especially users will not need to read the documentation every 5 minutes to figure out what they need to do. Let's say we have this event emitter up on rec in snake case, body, headers, query string, then on response in camel case, error, payload, headers. Yeah, I can understand what's happening, but it's not that comfortable even to write. So let's do the same thing. Request a response. The on is already there, so why write it twice? And the function just takes 2 parameters, request a response. You will populate them later. Just document it and you're fine. In this way, you can add more stuff later. You can avoid most of breaking changes. And people already know that any event will have that function signature. Easy. Another very important thing is to avoid convoluted options. Always be clear. I know this is not easy because when you write the option, it makes kind of sense, the name. But when you have something like transfer parameter in case of weird format 1, or log error only true, yeah, okay, I understand what's happening, but why not normalize params true and log level error? Same functionality, but way better developer experience. Then also, please don't reinvent the wheel. I know that it's very easy to do that, but use well-defined patterns, because if you reinvent the wheel, people will need to read your documentation, and people are lazy. So unless you're using Go, so the example is the other way around. For example, in callback first in Node.js, you have, sorry, error first callbacks. You have error data, not the other way around. So try to follow always the pattern that the community has established. This is very important. Then, if you're developing a JavaScript library, this is a pain topic for me, TypeScript support. So 46% of the package on NPM uses some form of TypeScript. So, which means that we can no longer ignore it if I were. And do not rely on definitely typed, because you are not in control of those types, and those types will go out of date. And the TypeScript community has this very nice habit to complain if you're not supporting very well their ecosystem. So probably in the last year, I got at least 100 issues. Hey, please add the types. And the answers, you can check it, is, hey, open a pull request, every time. So my suggestion is try to maintain a type definition yourself, because again, we can no longer ignore it. And maintaining a type definition is not fun, but at least we are in control of them, which is the most important thing. And also remember that change the type definition by adding the types to your library, but the types were previously indefinitely typed, is a breaking change, even if you cannot detect it. So be aware of this. So after 2 years of complaining about TypeScript, how can you give a decent TypeScript support and sleep by night? First, write the library directly in TypeScript. It's an easy suggestion. I usually don't do that, because I really like all the freedom JavaScript gives me, but it's opinions. If you don't want to do that, write the type definition and then write a small project that uses these types and will compile it every time. This kind of works. It's very easy to implement as a method, but you can't be very sure that the types are always in sync with your actual code. So it's not, in the long run, will cause you problems. Or finally, you can write extensive test suite for type definitions. This is something quite new, because TypeScript originally didn't assume that people will write type definition for their code. So they just assume that people will use TypeScript, and that's fine. So testing types was something not in their mind at the time. So a couple of developers, one of them is Sindre Sorus, which I guess all of you knows, wrote this very nice package, TSD, where basically you can write your JavaScript code. So we have concat, foo bar, plus bar, and then you have your type definition, who says, if you give me 2 strings, I will get you back a string. If you give me two numbers, I will give you back a string in any case. And then you write your code, your testing here. So you say expect type string if I'm calling to string, expect type string if I'm giving 2 numbers. And this test will fail, will throw an error because obviously this is not happening. Here we will return a number. I know that JavaScript is super fun, but I'm quite sure that here we will get a number back. So this is a good approach. We are testing this on Fastify. It took 4 or 5 months rewriting the entire testing suite for supporting this. So it's a very long work. Start doing it from the beginning. Then breaking changes are okay. Let me start with this. Do not fear breaking changes. You can do as many breaking changes as you want. That's fine. You for sure have good reason for doing them. But please, please communicate them well, because there's nothing more fun than update your code and everything breaks because someone have released a patch. So luckily, we have a spec for supporting this thing. The name is semantic versioning, and it works in a quite easy and understandable way. You have 3 numbers, measure, minor, and patch. If you increase the measure, there is a breaking change. If you increase the minor, there is a feature. Otherwise, if you increase the patch, there is a patch, a bug fix. It's very easy. It happened like 1 week ago, more or less, when a very commonly used React package released a breaking change in a minor because, yeah, no one is using this feature. The entire community was broken in 1 single day. Drop a measure, that's fine, believe me. Also, when you are dropping old version of nodes, that is a breaking change. Remember this. Again, learning the hard way. So how now you wrote everything, you are happy with your result, and you want people let know about your work. What can you do? It depends, and these are a not comprehensive list of what you can do. You can publish a post on, oops, let me move. You can publish a post on dev.to, the Node.js collection, which is a collection of Medium articles for Node, Node.js Weekly, JavaScript Weekly, Reddit, offline meetups, conferences like this one, or Twitter. So there's a lot of ways for doing that. So after all of this work, great. Now people saw our library, they like it, they started using it, and we have become our maintainers. And now? Well, now all of us will enter in a very different work, and your perspective will change a lot about how this world works. Let me start with this. Be a maintainer is very fun. I really love it. But be a maintainer is also very, very complex. Here I'm quoting Michael Jackson from React Training, who says, no joke, about 95% of the work in open source is around education. Documentation, issue, pull requests, reviews, website, blog, post, talk, tweets, example, etc. Writing the code is the easy part. Helping people use it is the vast majority for your work as an open source developer. And I completely agree with this, because in every release of Fastify, the number of docs fixes outnumbers everything else by at least 1 order of magnitude, every time. So, yes, documentation. It's very, very important. Then, I care a lot about this topic, open source sustainability. If you're already inside the community, you probably already know what I'm talking about. This is a highly discussed topic, and there are a lot of ways to talk about this. I'll try this one. Please don't kill me afterwards. So in my opinion, the world is divided into factions. You have passive consumers and active consumers. You can recognize who's part of the passive consumers because they say you knew it in advance. You knew it in advance that your code will be freely usable by anyone. It will be free, you will not get anything out of it. You know it. And then there is the second part, the active consumers, who says, yes, I know it. I know that everything is free, there's the license, I know. But I also know how hard it is to maintain open source project, how hard it is to produce a good code, the good documentation, how much time I need to invest in it, and also how hard it is to have an healthy community and also try to have fun. So when you see a company that makes billions of dollars with your MIT licenses code, yes, I know, I knew it in advance, but come on, you're making billions. Can you come on, help open source in some way? So there's no easy solution to this problem at all. There have been a lot of experiments in the community. You may have heard about the funding experiment. It was about in August this year by Feroz, which is another great developer of the Node community, where basically he was logging a banner every time you installed a package, and this banner was giving money to the original maintainer. There was a lot of backfire, unfortunately. My opinion was a very good idea. Then there is license 0, which is a new license, which basically gives the code for free if you are an active user, so if you are a contributor, if you are using not for profit, but it asks you money if you are going to use the code in a company, for example, and you are making money out of it. And also another very difficult topic is how do you handle transitive dependencies? Because yes, all of us use Babel, but how many of you are contributing to core.js, which is one of the most important bits of Babel? And that is a transitive dependency. You know about it only because there was the log message until a couple of months ago, and then NPM ripped it out. So another harder topic is that your code could be used by anyone, literally anyone. It can be used by single developers, okay? That's what they wanted at the end of the day. It can be used by companies. Oh, wow, that's cool. This super huge company is using my code. I can add it in my CV and my interviews. Great. It can be used by ONG who are saving lives. Wow, that's even better. It can also be used by governments who can do very good things or not so good things, as happening, you may have heard in the US with the ICE. But it can also be used by dictatorships or other bad actors. So a question you have to ask yourself is, are you okay with this? You have the answer, I don't. So at the end of the day, be a maintainer is definitely not about code. It's all about people. During a maintaining work, yes, we will take a lot of technical decisions. You will interact with a variety of human beings, and sometimes also you will face an aggressive behavior from someone. Usually my answer is open a pull request, and highly recommend it. Usually they drop any request after it. And always use an inclusive language. This is extremely important. You should also adopt a code of conduct in your project. This is also very important. I hope that you never have to enforce it, but sometime you will have. And this is because there's nothing more important than a healthy community in open source. This is the most important thing over everything else. So why am I a maintainer after all these super difficult topics? Well, because I love it, because when I started I didn't know anything about this, and also because every day I learn something new. Every day I meet a lot of people, every day I can literally do anything I want. I can come here, I can meet all of you. But also because I'm in a lucky position. I work for Elastic. Elastic is an open source company. 100% of my time is on open source, both for Elastic and my personal projects. So, and the company encourages you to write your own project. That's absolutely fine. So, which means that I can invest my own free time in playing, experimenting on what I want, and know that at the end of the month, I'll get my pay. But this is not work for everyone. There are some people who don't have this kind of lucky position, and they have to fight for contributing to open source, even sending pull requests via pull request, because they can't send, they can't contribute. That's crazy. But so I think that being an open source developer means that you are a part of a community, and the community works if everyone is respected and happy. So this should be always our end goal. And also, this is why I think I'm part of this second part, active consumers, and I think that open source should be sustainable, and we should find a way to do it. So if you have some idea, join the discussion, and good luck. So, do you want to be a maintainer? Thank you.